My name is Nolita. I'm a recovering addict. My clean date is May 11th of 1997. So I've been clean for 3 days, 2 weeks, 1 month, and 25 years. Yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and share a bit about your story. We really appreciate you coming out. Could you start off by sharing a bit about your childhood?
Okay, so there was a lot going on. Grown-ups did things like Friday night fish fries and Pokino parties where the grown-ups drank heavily. So I learned from an early age that to celebrate or to party or to release emotions, you drank. So kind of followed me on into adulthood. It progressed from drinking occasionally to in middle school it started marijuana, where we would hang out after school, on the way home from school, smoke marijuana, stop at the neighborhood store, get people to cop for us, and stand outside and hope a grown-up would come by to cop a beer or whatever it was at the time. So very active in athletics, but still drinking, smoking weed, and needing more. And so after school became before school. So I was late to school because we were standing outside trying to get somebody to cop. But I was still a really good student. I still kept my grades up, participated in activities, and one thing that really stands out, I was in the marching band. And we had these really big furry hats in the marching band. And so I had, on the way to the game, I had drank, I don't know how much alcohol, but I was pretty drunk. And so we get there and it was an away game, and we go to get on the bus, and I had drank so much that I got sick. And my big furry hat became the container in which everything in my stomach, came out in the big furry band hat. So that really stands. I never lived that down. For the rest of my life, people will, tease me about that.
Hat, right?
Yeah.
What did alcohol and smoking do for you? How did it make you feel?
Then I think I was still having fun with it. So there was really no thought behind it. It was just like everyone I hung around drank and got high. So it was just the thing to do. It was the cool thing to do, even for athletes. So at that point, like in high school, there was no kind of residual effects. I didn't really start feeling the negative effects of my addiction until I got to college.
So can you talk then about your college experience and what transpired?
Yeah, so my college experience, I kind of started to think that something was wrong, because what would happen was I could party with everybody else on the weekends. Friday night, everybody's partying. Saturday, it became increasingly aware to me that I don't drink like everyone else. I don't party like everyone else. And that's when kind of a little bit of shame and guilt set in. Not being able to get up for morning classes, so I switched all of my morning classes to afternoon or evening, which eventually still didn't work out well. I would miss those as well, so yeah.
Did you start to look for new people to hang out with that did drink like you?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. I just continued to be the one who was always drinking.
Gotcha.
There were not a whole bunch of people around me at the time who could drink and get high the way that I did, and I was kind of known as that person. So if you wanted to smoke a joint and it was Wednesday, go to Nolita's room because she's got it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And were you able to finish school then?
I did.
Okay.
I finished by the hairs of my chinny chin chin. It was, I think, probably my senior year at OU that I was introduced to cocaine. And that's when things got really real for me. No matter how hard I tried, once I started, I did not stop until everything was gone. All of the money, all of the drugs, everything was gone. Versus before cocaine, when it was just alcohol and marijuana, yeah, I could put a cap on it.
Yeah.
But with the cocaine, I was off to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how were your relationships starting to be impacted then during the cocaine use?
At that point, I did start to accumulate a different set of friends, people who were not students, who were locals, and yeah, I started to hang out with those people even more. Which took me, of course, away from school, away from classes, away from, all of the positive influences that I could have had going on at the time. And, things just went incredibly downhill. I was really lucky that it wasn't until my senior year that I got introduced to cocaine, because had it been earlier, I would have never finished school.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what'd you do after you graduated then?
After I graduated, I met this guy. Actually, I met this guy in my senior year at OU, and we hooked up. He was from Cleveland, and so I ended up moving to Cleveland with this guy. I hadn't known him for that long, and the relationship became incredibly toxic. I'll say toxic. We were arguing, we were fighting, and so again, my addiction, I was even further and further and further into the addiction. And Cleveland is it was a totally different culture than Columbus. Even though, it's only, 2.5 hours away, but it was an incredibly different culture. I didn't know anyone, and so I gravitated towards people who could get me what I needed. And at that time, I had progressed from just cocaine to smoking crack. And yet another valley happened in my life. So
how long did you stay in Cleveland for?
I was in Cleveland for, I think, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, until my mom knocked on my door one day out of the blue, and she said, "You're coming home." Yeah.
Okay.
I remember her telling me, "You don't even look like my daughter anymore." Like, yeah. And so Mom came and kind of swooped me up and brought me back to Columbus. I continued, though. And the disease of addiction continued to progress. And it's like all of those things that I saw people on the streets doing that I had judged previously, like, hanging out, not having a job, stealing, all of those things that I had judged other people for became a part of my story once I came back.
Did you start to experience some consequences then at that time with criminal justice or with your family?
I was incredibly blessed that I never was arrested. I don't have a criminal background at all. I always told myself, I will never live like this again. only to live like that again through my addiction. And so my most serious consequences were experiencing times when I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to stay. I had no car. I, was going for days and days without eating. So physically, my body was breaking down.
How did that start to wear on your mental health and your psyche and how you felt?
Yeah, it was very depressing. I had a great deal of self-loathing because I was the one. I was the one in the family who was supposed to become something. And so I felt like I had the total weight of my family on my shoulders, and people were disappointed. And so was I.
Yeah.
So was I. Up until my addiction really took off, I had been a winner. All through high school, I was really good at sports, captain of the basketball team. We won the state championship, student president of my senior class. And then going on to college, the first one in my family to graduate high school, let alone go to college and graduate. So I was the one.
Yeah.
Only to find myself back in the neighborhood, and to have friends say to me, I cannot believe that you are out here like this. Like, dude, I can't believe it either.
Right. Yes.
I'm a winner.
Right.
I've won at everything that I've set out to do, but addiction, I had no fight.
What happened that you decided, I want to do something different?
Yeah, so I got into a point in my life where I realized that if I didn't stop, I was going to die. And that was a realization that, I came to on my own, but it was my mother as well. And I remember those nights of the walk of shame, is what I call it. After I'd been gone for days at a time, I would show up at my mother's house and knock on her door 3 or 4 in the morning to get her up out the bed. And this particular time, she'd open the door and she gave me this look like she was relieved to see me, but she really, really just wanted me to get my stuff together because she was scared as well. And so she lets me in, and I go in and I go through the whole song and dance that I'd gone through before. Mom, I promise I'm gonna quit. You didn't raise me like this. I promise I'm just gonna come in, get something to eat, take a bath. I promise I'll get up in the morning and I'll go find a job. All I need is a job to get me back on track. And she takes one look at me and she says, when you leave here today, the only thing I want you to find is where you left my daughter. Because I haven't seen her in a long time and I have no idea who you are anymore.
Wow.
And so that hit me like a ton of bricks. And at that point, the person whose house I was over started hinting around that, look, it's time for you to go. So I get up and I'm headed out the door. And as I go out the door, someone comes in and I hear them mention that it was Mother's Day that day. I had no idea that it was even close to Mother's Day. And I thought about my mom and what she had said about, I just need for you to find my daughter. So that was May 11th of 97. I went home on Mother's Day and I gave my mother her daughter back. And I haven't found it necessary to use since then. I went to treatment. I went through detox. I went through a residential program for like 40 days, and then I went to a 6-month program. Then I went to another program for women. I stayed in treatment for like a year and a half. And research shows that the longer a person stays in treatment, the better off their odds are of staying clean.
Absolutely.
And I had really good counselors around me who continued to remind me, just stay as long as you can. So I'm really grateful for that.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, of being able to stay for such a long period of time. This is a chronic disease, and 25 years ago, that program of being was really far advanced, because most places, and even still today, so much of it is 15 days, 30 days of treatment and whatnot. And while we are making some changes, we definitely still have a ways to go. So what a blessing, and really, it's a lot that speaks a lot to really that decision that you made of wanting to do something different. Mm-hmm. and sticking out, because I'm sure there were days that you probably didn't feel like staying. So
yeah.
What did you do for employment? How did you start to rebuild that part of your life?
Well, luckily for me, I graduated OU in '92, and I went straight into professional work, doing things like, I was a caseworker at Human Services. I worked with Children's Services for a while. So I really built a sort of a foundation in my work history, to now I'm a chemical dependency counselor, and I run a nonprofit. I now have custody of a niece, who is 16 and going through that whole process of learning to drive, and that's a whole other story. I always wanted to travel. So all through high school and all through college, when people were taking Spanish, I took French, and I fell in love with the culture. Always said I want to go. One day I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to France. And so for my 25th anniversary, I booked the flight, and I spent my 25th anniversary in May in Paris.
How was it?
Oh my goodness. It was a life-changing trip. I went by myself, and I did that because that's what I wanted to do. I did that by design, because I just wanted to be able to take in the culture without having people with me who were like, let's go here, let's go there. But it was life-changing in that I got to experience something that I never thought possible. I came from poverty, and to stand underneath the Eiffel Tower
Absolutely.
and look up, I knew I was blessed.
Yeah, for sure. How was the food?
The food was good. See, I'm not a person, I don't have a sophisticated palate. I'm very picky. So I ate a lot of crepes. I ate cheeses that smelled good. But more than anything else, just experiencing the culture and having other people to talk the language with.
Very cool.
It was great.
That's spectacular. What words of hope could you share with someone who is struggling, trying to get sober?
Words of hope. You can do it. It's possible. That old saying is dead. Once an addict, always an addict. It's dead.
Yeah.
Like, we do recover. We can get better. But it takes some belief in ourselves, and it takes a willingness to change just about everything.
Your message of hope is so spectacular, and you're being able to share your experiences is really wonderful. That, there's so many things that you said that are very profound and really can help somebody. I genuinely mean that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.